It is Thursday. RawMikeRichards.com, broadcasting live from the DKI studios in downtown Toronto, out of the Pacific Junction Hotel, 234 King Street East in the Big Smoke. Going to talk to our good friend Liam McGuire, the hockey trivia guru. I was going to say, if you have a question for Liam or want to challenge him on something, you could do so on Twitter, but I'm not going to waste the time. You can't beat him. You can't. What was it Drago said? I must break you. Break you. You'll never break Liam McGuire. Never. He is one of our longtime good friends. Boy, we've known him for years. Liam McGuire's in Ottawa. Yeah, a buddy who also, a guy named McGuire who also owns his own pub. Like, to me,
weird, eh?
He's the greatest man of all time. He is. And if you're a fan of this show, like I always said, Mike Richards in the morning, or in this case, Raw Mike Richards, if you mention that when you go to Ottawa, if you're going to go to a hockey game, I assume that's the only reason. Maybe a football game. Otherwise, what, are you looking at the Parliament buildings? So you can get a glimpse of Justin? You're not a fan of the show anyway. If that's of interest to you, you're not a fan of this show. But if you go up and say something, he'll give you the first round, like the first drink, on the house. I'll ask him again today. He always does it. Also a surprise for David Bastel. We're going to go back into the archives to hear some names that, boy, we haven't heard in a while.
Uh-oh.
No, but you're going to like it. You will like it a lot. And, of course, last night's hockey game where the Leafs, that was a tight one, with the Calgary Flames. And when I said yesterday, I wonder if the thing's going to turn into a track meet, the first thing you said was, nope.
Mm-hmm.
And you called that one. Look, there's not a lot of Leaf games that you can take a look at and say, yeah, it's gonna be tight. It's gonna be low scoring. And maybe it would be higher scoring if it wasn't for Frederik Andersen. It's been a long time since the Andersuck comments have come out, and right now he's playing himself right into sort of the upper echelon of the league in terms of goaltending. The only thing that I would suggest before everyone gets too excited, you start averaging in the upper 30s and 40 shots a game. You start looking at those kinds of, which means there's that many chances. In this day and age, Dave, in the NHL, I mean, it certainly makes for nice numbers. It makes for a nice story. Before people get all wrapped up into, I wonder if he's going to win the Vezina, I will tell you that that's a tough way to make a living in the NHL, Dave, trying to stop 45, 47, in the upwards of 50 shots a game, not good. It's not good. I mean, some coaches, when they take over a team, sometimes their mandate, they'll look at things like that. I'm not a huge analytics guy. I'm not a huge guy when it comes to numbers. I really need to know what a team is about in terms of its humanity. I mean, I'm going to be old school that way, and I do understand sort of with the advent of people talking about it in a popular manner and certainly in the lexicon of sport conversation. But you go back to Don Landry. Coach Landry, that's what he did. It was that what they called it at the time, computerized. And people were uncomfortable. Really what it was analytics. It was the earliest stages of looking at numbers, possibility, chances based on the numbers that a game or sport would offer you. But I think when you get too in love with it, and maybe the sport that's the most in love with numbers is baseball.
By far.
Like, it's annoying, Dave. I mean, you're a baseball guy. Don't you find it a little annoying?
Yes, because you're starting to get those same arguments even earlier on in life about statistics this, statistics that. Hockey's making a play at it, though, Mike. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, there's nobody that sits there in that's freshly into hockey that actually can sit there and do the eye test and tell me, good player, bad player. It's like, no, he has a Corsi of this.
Oh, my God.
It's like, that's garbage. That's complete garbage. I respect analytics side of things, and I will now bring things like that into my conversation. But if you haven't properly watched a game and understand why this player is better than somebody else, then I really don't have time.
You got to understand the sport.
Yeah.
Or otherwise, you'll just get a math major to take a look at all the numbers, and he'll tell you who the best player, the best team is.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that makes me feel uncomfortable. You talk to guys like, well, Pierre McGuire used to talk about a whole bunch, but if you talk to a lot of the guys who played the game, who you now see as analysts, they'll say almost and mirror exactly what Dave Bastel just said, which is you bring some of those pieces of the puzzle to that conversation in the sport. In this particular case, we're talking about hockey. So if a guy is on the ice for, you touch like plus minus, we get that.
Yep.
Like, to me, that's not a hard one to figure out. And of the numbers, and maybe the simpler numbers.
But even those.
But it doesn't tell you the whole story,
no,
Dave.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Like, I remember, like, especially in the 90s and early 2000s, where some of the plus minus leaders, you'd sit there and you go, how the hell is that guy leading the NHL in plus minus? You know what I mean? It's almost like opportunistic times for player X, and you sit there and you go, no, that's clearly that stat with him leading in that category clearly tells me that is not a useful stat.
Yeah, I'll give you another one. When they talk about the quarterback rating.
Yep.
So Phillip Rivers leads at how many? Like, he's always at the top of that list. How many times has the team won? Now, I'm not saying it's his fault, but I'm saying it doesn't tell you the whole story. Numbers are, I think they're a helpful tool in breaking down to what you do the best, what you're the weakest on, those kinds of things. But if you're telling me it is a predictor of who is better than who and what is a better team, then I'm saying you're not understanding the sport at hand. And every sport has a tendency or a quirk to it. But the numbers for Freddie Anderson have been spectacular. And, of course, it gets into a shootout. And, look, there are times, too, that there are aspects of the game for a goaltender that aren't their favorite. When I think of those years that Mika Kiprusoff was in Calgary, and in a year, including when he wins Vezina, the shootout was not his friend. Mm-hmm. He didn't like it. And so he tried to learn, I guess, something that he wasn't necessarily part of his resume, and it was the poke check. The poke check wasn't really something that he'd grown up with, because you think about it, when those goalies in the style of play, poke check wasn't necessarily a big thing. So the first couple of times he tried it in the shootout, it looked like it. He'd never performed it beforehand. Oh, he eventually got it down, but the shootout wasn't his friend. Not like he would play in a game. It's just how it is. So last night goes to a shootout, and I would say that you're looking at Mike Smith and the way that Freddie Anderson's played. To get it by them is probably going to be not the easiest thing in the world. So this was a really tight game last night. So let's take a look. It was a crazy finish to a really tight game. Property.
There you go.
Of the National Hockey League. This is owned by the NHL, and courtesy of our friends at Rogers Sportsnet, here is the shootout.
Here we go, the first shot of the shootout. Austin Matthews. And a 1-0 shootout lead for
How about that, roast beef? Austin Matthews.
On Mike Smith. And Matthew Tkachuk, who's been very involved in this game. Now the puck on his stick to try and tie it. And he does.
He shakes his head. He was pretty casual coming in there.
And William Nylander against Smith.
Really?
Toronto's ahead.
There's just a great example of the shooter outweighting the goaltender.
Backlund against Anderson.
That's it. Oh, baby.
Oh. 2-1 in a shootout.
There it is once again, property of the National Hockey League, which means they own that clip.
Wait a second. You already said that.
Yes, but I'm doing it again because you watched what happened today.
I know.
So are the Leafs happy? Sure. Although the coach, I know, made a couple comments about something that happened in the game. And
yeah, let's bring him in right now.
All right.
Should we talk to him?
Sure.
He's not doing anything. Come on. Mike Babcock joins us on the line from, I'm guessing it's in Toronto. Coach, good to talk to you on this Thursday morning.
Well, I got to say a couple of things, Davey. It's a good win, and I think Freddie has proven that what we thought in the beginning, which was, this is the best goalie for our group. I also think that, you've seen Willie out there doing what he done, and you're taking a look at Austin Matthews and 34 come through again. And so, it was a team win, and let's not forget about that. But I think it's still not a hard place. If you come and play us, they're not afraid. We got to make it a difficult place to play, and I don't think we're there yet. I really don't.
When you look at players like Matthew Tkachuk take liberties with your team, what's going through your mind in that? And I know the NHL is going to look at that today, so I don't want to get you in trouble with the NHL, but maybe your thoughts on that.
Well, let's get something straight, too. I thought he had a good game. I thought he was hard in the puck, and I thought he'd done a good job for them. But, that's junior hockey stuff, eh? Sticking a guy like that, that's, which is why I done what I done.
And what did you done?
After the game, I went by, and he was bending over to tie his shoes, and I farted in his face. I ripped a fart right there, and I said, "How'd smell that?" Now it's tough to play here, ain't it?
Yeah.
And you want to, cut that stuff out. And he probably, because I went to Burrito Boys. They make a good burrito. And,
they do.
Oh, they chop up the onions, and I get jalapenos.
Yeah.
You had those are the.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's good stuff. But I'll tell you what, he's a good player. Well, we've got good players, but you're going to smell a fart like that and think twice.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what I done.
Did you capitalize on the Burrito Boys offer where you buy a $25 gift certificate and you get a free small burrito right there?
No, because I'm not cheap.
Okay.
Hey, Davey.
Okay.
I've heard things about you, and I pay for my stuff. But thanks for having me on the show. No, we done good. I'm happy with the boys.
Coach, good to hear from you. Good luck in Pittsburgh.
Thanks.
So Mike Babcock with some interesting comments. I thought for sure you'd take advantage of that gift certificate offer that I hear all the time on the fan. So you know what? It's funny how we have Babcock on, and we have a former Jack Adams Award winner as well. The one, the only Don Cherry.
Hey, let me stop you right there. No. Don't, Davey.
Okay.
Here's something that he just said, Mike Babler. That's why I call him Mike Babler. You got to do more than. Just if you're Matty Martin, who's a good kid,
Yep.
wins your guy, come out and he played and everything like that. You take a stick, which is he's just stirring the pot. It's what to Chuck done there. And so if you got to get the guys, I'll tell you. John Wenson can stand.
Yes,
Jonathan Egg.
Yep.
There's some beauties, They get, you get those guys on the ice and they get cold, and everything, and they start, you punching guys. I mean, I understand the farting in the face. All right, that's good, That's good, but you gotta Stan. Here's something, Stan. No one knew this, No one knew. Stan Jonathan made the nicest tuna melt you'd ever taste. You ever tasted it? It's
okay.
Delicious. The cheese all melty and everything like that. But getting back to Babler, that's where you throw the guys on the ice and you say, "Here you go." It's fights.
Okay. So are you trying to tell me that maybe the Leafs should have a couple more enforcers on this roster, and Matt Martin shouldn't be the only one?
Uncle Leo, he's good, But he's you need more Canadians, not all the Ruskies or the French or what they got. You got to get. More guys from Kingston, Dougie Gilmore, he'd give her back,
Yeah,
he'd do that.
He would.
He'd do that.
Grapes.
He's good to strip joint too,
He
Heard
is.
that? Oh yeah.
Well,
You get a lot of stuff.
there's a lot of stuff happening. Grapes, always good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us on this Thursday.
You're a beauty, Dave. Way to go.
The one, the only, the real Don Cherry. Somewhat real.
Yeah. Well, I also think that that's the old. We talked about the old school hockey.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't uncommon.
No.
And it wouldn't be just a little yoop. Like if you were to get I think even Matt Martin said, he goes, I didn't even feel it.
Yeah,
I wasn't aware of it until people said.
Yeah, you'd go full Willie Platt on him.
Willie Platt.
And if I'm aiming for you, I'm really aiming for that wall, and it's going through you. So
Okay, speaking of old time, the Kids in the Hall. Is
Yes.
it Bruce
yeah,
McCullough? I'm trying to think of it.
okay, yeah,
They have a show that's based. It's supposed to be in Calgary in like the 70s.
okay.
70s going to the 80s. I mean, it's Punch Drunk Punk, I think it's called.
Okay, I'm not familiar with
The
it.
last episode was because they live in this sort of townhouse complex that Atlanta. This is supposed to be when Atlanta comes to Calgary, and so now for the first time in their townhouse complex, they get a Calgary Flame.
Okay,
It's hysterical.
I love it.
The guy who plays the Calgary Flame is hysterical. You got something? No, you're waving there, and then you're flailing. What is?
He's flapping his wings.
Yeah, go ahead. Put the Russ came on because
Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, Dave asked me to get a picture of someone.
Yeah.
Was just seeing if it was the right person.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
You're setting something up?
Well, no. The thing is, we talked to Mike Babcock and we talked to Don Cherry.
Yeah.
And it came to mind that maybe we should talk to maybe Buffalo's greatest, broadcaster, Brother Shane, to talk about the Sabres as well. But I wasn't gonna bring it up right now.
Okay, let's not do that.
I wasn't gonna bring it right now.
Okay.
Because I from a personal side of it, I love Brother Shane. And
you might be dead too. I think.
Yeah,
So.
I know.
Well, not on this show.
Not on this show.
No, everything lives on this show.
If you and I do this in 25 years, Brother Shane is coming back.
Oh, I just realized I forgot my parking. I didn't do my parking today.
Do you want to go? Okay, I'll take over. Parking meter. You guys suck. And
I can't believe that. She's gonna beat me. Is she out there doing stuff?
Yes, she's walking by, but she looks like she just walked by your car too, which is great. Which means that wait, no, they keep on walking. We have these apps, and I do recommend it. When you're somewhere like you are right now in downtown Toronto, you can actually click on the Green P app, and you can pay for it from here, which is outstanding. So if you do travel into the downtown like we do, we could actually figure it out like that. So.
Is she doing anything? That's how about that? Green P in action.
Green P in action.
There's the app I have right here normally, but I think I forgot to do it. So
she kept on walking though. You know what the thing is? Quick tip for you guys too.
Eat it.
When they don't see a ticket, if they don't punch in your license plate, they can't actually see if you're on the app. And a lot of times, and I'm just being honest, they're lazy. They're really lazy. So you can actually get by a couple times. But you got to be careful, though, because it's not worth the $35 or $45 that it comes down to. But you know what? If you come across a lazy parking attendant over there.
I forgot. I haven't done that in a while.
No, there you go.
The Green P in action.
By the way, I wanted to get to a couple things. Philadelphia Flyers beat the Edmonton Oilers, so they sweep Alberta. So going back to what the Leafs did in Alberta doesn't mean that much, does it? Also, the Ottawa Senators lose again, like we told you yesterday. The Ducks and their backup goaltender get the shutout, and Washington hammers the Chicago Blackhawks. And, Mike, it's hard to believe that we're sitting here in December and the Chicago Blackhawks are flirting with last place in the Central Division.
Well, I think it's still, I'll go back to what I said at the beginning of the season, is that they have had a cycle of success that when you look back over the last, I'd say at least, 10, maybe even 15 years, that they have been what I consider to have sort of as close as we're going to get to a dynasty anymore, simply because it's too hard to have the 3-4 in a row. But if you get like 2 out of 4 years or whatever their run was, 3 out of 5, like to me,
they got 3 cups.
So they get 3 cups, and now you're at the end of that cycle where guys are a little bit older. See, the key now in professional sports, because of cap issues, when you're on the low ebb of that cycle, how have you done? Knowing that it goes that way, to come back up so you truly are able to replenish. And it seems in this day and age, Dave, the way to do that is you lose out.
Yep.
So if this is the year that they are not going to be competitive, they've got guys they're going to let go, then in Chicago, as a Blackhawk fan, I'm sitting there going, okay, well, we've had some great success. The guy's a little bit older, so Duncan Keith and everybody else and Jonathan Taves, or however that's going to look, what is the plan?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be in the middle, because that is nowhere's land. That's death.
And you know what? It's funny, though, because Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane still have a lot of life in them.
Sure, they do.
So it's not like they're sitting. We're talking about 2 aging superstars in their mid to late 30s.
No, there is huge. There is huge value to these guys, and that's why I think it's the hardest thing in the world now to do it. And as a fan base, it really kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But if you want to hang on to those guys, if you want to Vince Carter it, if you want to, and we'll see what happens with Carey Price, if you want to sit there and be competitive because you want your fans to come to the building and end up as a 7 or an 8 or even worse, a bubble team, good luck the following year, because it gets weaker and weaker. It's like real estate. Then the value starts to go down. You want to sell when the value is the highest.
Yeah.
And who wouldn't pay for the guys that Dave just mentioned? So that's
We'll see.
the hard reality of it,
Yeah,
Dave.
we'll see what happens. Right now, it's hard to believe that the 7 teams in the Central Division, the worst team is 500. So, the Blackhawks are sitting there at 12, 11, and 5. They're 6th place out of 7 teams in the Central Division. For my money, and I don't think I'm really, breaking news here, but 5 teams in the Central Division will make the postseason. So we'll see which 5 do make it, but I see 3 teams, I should say, out of the Pacific, 5 in the Central Division, because that's how good. That's the toughest division in hockey right now.
I'll tell you about tough hockey, Dave.
Okay.
We're going to go back. We're going to go back a ways because the legendary Liam McGuire going to join us here on Raw Mike Richards in the DKI studios here at 234 King Street East. Hopefully you're also subscribing both to, if you're watching on YouTube, and it looks like a lot of people are this week certainly, the little subscription right there, the little red banner. Click it. Do it. Do that. Do it for us, and it really helps us out. Also, people are going to, because it looks like we're going to have a big giveaway in there last week before Christmas.
Oh, very good.
Our good friend Ted the Viking from Blade Tape, he's got something special for you, but you got to be a subscriber to win, to get this. People are also asking for the Raw Mike Richards hat. Now, we've got the Irish one on today, but that's Dick's wear.
It is.
And trust me, if you want to be wearing Dick's,
DIX.
you watch the show.
X.
That's what he's saying, but you know what I'm saying? I don't know. I don't know. Okay, so this is pretty cool. I've never seen this before. We are going back to, I believe, Russell, this is 1977. Now, I don't know if we have to say properly the National Hockey League because it's before all the little, as they say, the little graphics and the bugs and all the things that the computer says, no, that's theirs. Well, we'll say properly the National Hockey League, but I don't know if it is because guess what? It's not the NHL. It's the WHA.
Ooh.
The year is 1977.
Oh, I like this year.
And your Winnipeg Jets are playing a team from Moscow.
Oh, yes.
Get a load of these awesome names. This is crazy. Start of the third period.
They're the Winnipeg Jets. Anders Hedberg and fellow countryman Ulf Nilsson. Their team trailing the Soviet Union by a score of 3-1 as we head into the final 20 minutes of regulation play. Recapping the scoring just briefly. In the second period, Winnipeg got on the scoreboard after just 20 seconds of play. A power play goal, Bobby Hull from Tommy Bergman. But the Soviet Union came back. Helmut Poldaris unassisted at 10:48 to make it 2-1. And then Alexander Yakushev with his second of the night from Babanov at 13:23. That was a short-handed goal.
Yakushev.
Soviets out shooting the Jets 14-12. A two-period total of 24-21.
They're going to show the goal. Yakushev.
Here is a look at the third Soviet goal. That is Yakushev going in on Daly. Now watch this very closely. It appears from here at least, and from that camera angle, as if Daly had made the save. But somewhere between the pads, the puck came loose. There it is. You see Daly reaching back as Yakushev scored his second goal of the game. Joe Daly has been outstanding. And, of course, so has that gentleman there, Vladislav Tretiak, as he always seems to be in international hockey competition.
How about those names? 1977 going to the third period, it was 3-1, and just those names, including a power play goal by the Golden Jet.
The Golden Jet himself. And just to give you a little bit of history for everybody wondering what happened there, the Jets score 4 third period goals and win 5-3.
Oh, they came back.
Just telling you.
Oh, maybe. Wow.
They lost the series to the Soviets, too, because they actually played the Soviet Union in Russia. And the one thing the Jets didn't have going for him is goaltending. And with all due respect to Mr. Joe Daly, who's a Hall of Famer, this was near the end of his career. Joe Daly was amazing in the year. We've had him on the show before in a previous stint at whatever that station's called. And he, between 72 and 75, that was kind of like the latter stages of his career, and then he kept on hanging on a little bit longer. Retired as a Winnipeg Jet, and the backup Marcus Matson actually played game 1. They thought they were going to pass the baton eventually over to him. He actually joined the NHL Jets a little bit later on in the 80s. Never turned out to be anything big. So goaltending a major factor in that series.
Well, and think about it though too. That's WHA time.
Yes.
This is not NHL time. So for the rest of the country, you're like, we liking this? Like that's what I remember about the WHA as a kid. Is like, oh, I don't know what's going on, but you knew the names. Yeah. You knew who Bobby Hall was.
Oh yeah.
We heard about this Gretzky kid, but I didn't really know that much about him. Quite honestly,
that Jet team would compete with the Montreal Canadiens of the NHL if they go head to head. I'll go to my grave with that. I mean, Bobby Hall, Anders Hedberg, Alf Nielsen may have been the greatest line.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. But look at the team they played in Moscow, though. Those names.
Oh, that was the actual. That was the Big Red Machine.
That was the Red Army.
Everybody talks about with the no. That was roster was it. The KLM was young. Tretiak was being wowed by everybody. The Montreal Canadiens actually went out a year and a half later and drafted him, thinking that somehow we're going to sneak this guy into Montreal and he's going to replace Ken Dryden, because you might remember Ken Dryden retired relatively young, 1979, and people thought, okay,
because he went back to law school.
That's right.
He went to practice law.
Like Ken Dryden, to think of it today, for a goalie to come play 7-8 years and then retire, that's unheard of.
Yeah, but don't get me started on Ken Dryden, because he's very annoying to me.
No, I know,
annoying.
But as well as he played in the NHL, I'm just saying he was the goalie of the 70s basically, and the only knock I have against Ken Dryden outside of his interview style and managing the Toronto Maple Leafs,
his second mask was ridiculous.
Yeah,
the first mask kind of cool.
Oh, very cool.
But the second mask, it was a clown mask. I hated it.
No, but the thing is, was never as good internationally as he was in the NHL.
He writes in his book, he knew he was on the verge of being the most hated man in Canada, and it was, because I wanted to.
Like in '72, he was garbage.
No, it was terrible. Even Espo didn't play that great, but it was Ken that was going to take the heat for that one.
Yes.
You heard the name Yakushev. Now, do you have the picture of me in Ufa, Russia? Because I got to admit, I like to fit in. I like to be part of the crowd. And when we covered the World Juniors in Ufa, Russia, I went under the name Misha Yakushev. That's the name I picked.
No wonder they liked you so much.
Well, I was with the sheriff, Shane Knighty.
I was going to say.
And the sheriff, and I went around, and it's not there? Thought I sent it to you. Oh, that was a nice build-up for nothing.
Way to go, Rusty.
Get me mad again? Okay, so we're going to get to Liam McGuire. And speaking of getting mad, well, I wonder if Skype's going to work for us.
Hey!
He is one of our favorites and is the hockey guru. I mean, if you think you know more than him, I'll answer it right now. You don't. You just don't. And he's been on, he used to go off the record all the time. He was usually the best guest, I'll be honest. He was usually the best guy on the panel. And on any given show that we've had, we can go like an hour with him because he's so much fun. And so he's done a bunch of things. This is called The Word. So when we come back on the other side, we're going to talk to the legendary Liam McGuire.
Statistical numerical anomalies. What's in a number? Well, a recent Saturday, not too long ago, when the Toronto Maple Leafs were hosting the Washington Capitals, they took an opportunity to honor former number 23 Pat Quinn. Pat Quinn left an indelible image on hockey. There's no doubt about it. The entire hockey community mourns his loss. However, that night in Toronto, to honor the big number 23, some astute observers noticed a correlation in numbers with the 2-3 or the 23 at the conclusion of the game, which was a 6-2 win for the Toronto Maple Leafs. For example, they scored their second goal of the game with 23 seconds to go in the first period. They scored their third goal of the game 23 seconds into the second period. They scored their fourth goal of the game 23 seconds after the Washington Capitals had scored their first goal. The Leafs ended up with 23 shots on net that night, and the Washington Capitals ended up with 23 penalty minutes. No matter how you look, if you find some sort of significance with the numbers, if you look hard enough, and this was pointed out to me because I'm a big numbers guy. Well, hold on. You think that's something? I call these statistical numerical anomalies. The late Rocket Richard, the man the trophy is named after, on November 8th, 1942, scored his first ever goal in the NHL. 10 years to the day, November 8th, 1952, he became the all-time career goal-scoring leader in the NHL with career goal number 325. Gets better. The one that is the greatest statistical numerical anomaly in the history of the world. The precise moment that Bobby Orr scores that goal that sent him flying through the air after he was tripped by Noel Picard leads to 70 correlations to the number 4. 70 on that Mother's Day, May 10th, 1970. Not going to give you all 70. They're in my book. But I'll give you a few just to give you an example of how this type of configuration works.
I believe this is the guru. This is the man. This is Liam McGuire I'm speaking with right now, live on rawmikeRichards.com.
How are you, brother?
We just played something from one of your series called The Word, where you're going through the number 23, as it pertained after there was a tribute to Pat Quinn.
Pat Quinn.
And the things that you just went through in the last minute. That's why when people say, "Hey, I think I know as much about hockey as Liam McGuire," here's your answer: you don't. Don't even try it. Don't go near this man. This is not a fight that you want. You're the Drago. You're the Mike Tyson of hockey trivia. Don't get blown up, buddy. It's unbelievable and so great to have you on the show for the first time today.
Yeah, you know what? I've been following you obviously online, my friend, and since you launched this fantastic venture and seeing all the responses and your fantastic guests, and mentioned to you a few weeks back, or I guess a couple months probably now on Twitter, that I'd love to jump on with you. So I'm honored, given the stature of the guests you've had on. I'm thrilled to be on, and we're from a previous incarnation. We've sat in a studio together numerous times, going back over the years, and always enjoyed it. Mike, you're a great supporter, and always helped me promote whatever venture, whether it be one of my books or one of my appearances anywhere and everywhere across this great country and through North America. So I thank you for all that in the past, and it's great to be on with you today, brother.
Well, I'll tell you, we also see on Twitter the Team Canada 72 and the pictures that they've been sending out lately, including ones that are just related to the players. So there was that one when Tampa Bay comes into the league, and there's a picture of Phil there. I mean, certain people's birthdays, pictures of Marcel Dion and Gilbert Perreault. Just it is of that time, and I just played an old clip previously for Dave, who's obviously a Winnipegger, and so we just saw the series with the Red Army in 1977, where you see and hear names like Dave, Bobby Hall,
Alf Nielsen, Anders Hedberg, Joe Daly, guys like that. Lars-Erik Sjoberg at the time, the captain of the Winnipeg Jets. That was a pretty impressive team, wasn't it, Liam?
Well, it was a great team by WHA standards, obviously. They were built on that one line, and you said Sjoberg. I mean, he actually captained them coming into the NHL, and unfortunately the rules, Hedberg and Nielsen jumped to the Rangers the year before the WHA folded. Yep. But that line, those three guys would obviously have not looked out of place as a line at that time in the National Hockey League. People forget when Bobby Hull jumped to the WHA, he was coming off a 50-goal season. He had just recorded his fifth 50-goal season with Chicago. So it wasn't like he was going over there past his prime. He was still good to go. And when he had 70-plus goals in that second or third year in the WHA, would it have been 70 in the NHL? No, of course not. But he would have definitely recorded, I think anyway, at least 2 more 50-goal seasons probably in the NHL. And that was an outstanding line. And let's be honest, when the NHL had the hammer and were forcing the WHA's hand, who had gone through at that point a total of 26 franchises on paper, 14 of which hit the ice in one way, shape, or another, not including transfers and everything else. They had the hammer, and yet the WHA were able to hold serve to a degree and ensure that 4 of their franchises, the strongest ones, including Winnipeg, were able to make the jump to the NHL. And we're Winnipeg 2.0 right now, but at the same time, it's just so great to see them back in the peg and playing as well as they are. And they did in the 80s. And if you think about it, the misfortune some of the teams in hockey history have had. Don Cherry had 11 players on his roster in 1978 score 20 goals or more. No team did that before. No team has done that since. And they lost in the final in 6 games to the Habs. They lost in 77 in 4 straight, and they lost in the semifinals in 79 and 7. They couldn't beat Montreal. And you look at Winnipeg with Dale and the boys, and Winnipeg's tied an NHL record in 1985 with 6 30-goal scorers. Think about it. 6. Tied the Sabres and the Islanders, the only 2 other teams in the 70s to do that in the 1970s, so a decade before, basically, and Winnipeg couldn't get out of that division. Because you got Calgary going to the finals in 86, winning a cup in 89, and you got Edmonton. What do you do? And that's why I was so disgusted that Dale Hawerchuk was left off the top 100 of all time. What an abject farce and a joke that was. Anybody who saw that guy play knew how incredible he was. And Dave, if you were in Winnipeg and at that era at all, I mean, 70s were a little bit before Dale, but if you were there at all through the 80s and you saw him in his prime, and he was unbelievable. It's a great city.
Okay.
Liam,
you have no idea what can you have just opened up. You know in those science fiction or horror movies where they go, don't open that box. You just opened that box. This is the largest Dale Hawerchuk fan that is on the planet. He has planned his children to be born on birthdays around
My
him.
second daughter's born on April the 4th, Liam.
No way, right on. Right on. I love it.
So,
I emceed his golf tournament 2 years ago, and up in Muskoka, and well, you know, the first I was in Ottawa about 12, 14 years ago. It was Dale, Wendell Clark, Bobby Hull, and Kirk Muller. That was a quartet I was with. We did a gig for a charity in Ottawa, and then we were done about 9 o'clock, and Bobby said, "Boys, let's find another location and get her going."
My memories of Dale Hawerchuk basically start as a kid getting out of a Brinks truck on Portage in Maine with John Ferguson and signing that contract. Yeah. The only other player to do that, of course, as you know, the great Bobby Hall. And Dale's, as soon as you said that, it's like, well, it's no wonder I love Liam McGuire as much as I do, because he's rattling off everything that I thought of at the time. Hey, you know what? One last topic about the Jets, because a lot of people don't know this, and I know you do. It's funny when they do get the expansion into the National Hockey League with Quebec, Hartford, and Edmonton. And when we look at what Las Vegas got for their expansion team and their opportunity to select players, that wasn't the scenario of the Jets, was it, Liam? Like they were stripped down completely. It was almost like putting a naked man in the streets and giving him one wristband, because that's how the NHL actually treated the WHA teams when they actually got the merger into the NHL.
Yeah, it was beyond brutal. They were allowed to protect 2 players. That's it.
Yeah.
And then after so many were claimed, if there was any dregs left, you could I believe substantiate with a player or 2. But you were essentially you just hit the nail on the head. You were essentially a mere shadow of what you were the season previous. And of course, in Winnipeg's case, they had lost Hedberg and Nielsen to the big money in New York the season prior, but they still had a strong nucleus. And if I'm not mistaken, I think their 2 priorities were Lukowicz and Lidstrom. I think it was Willie and Morris. No, maybe Scott Campbell.
Scott Campbell,
yes. Yeah, Scott Campbell. Yeah. He's on Twitter, does a great job.
He does. Yeah, you're right.
Winnipeg is good. Yeah, and he was tough as nails too. He could fight, and I've never actually formally met him, but I've exchanged a lot of messages with him, and I respect him greatly. For one, played in an era where he had to have guts to put a sweater on. But yeah, Scott was a priority pick, right? So they were decimated, and Edmonton keeps Wayne, and that's great. The other one was I believe it was Bent Gustafsson, who they ended up shifting over to Washington. Anyways, everybody got to keep 2. And was a mere shadow of what they had as a franchise before that. But that was, like I said, the NHL had the hammer, and the Jets built a hell of a team. Notwithstanding, John Ferguson, Fergie did a great job. I mean, he found a lot of talent, but at that time, thinking that Jimmy Mann or Jimmy Kite were first rounders and we're going to be the salvation. I mean, he obviously Dale was a no-brainer. But let's be honest, Fergie had his fingerprints all over that team as they excelled in the mid-'80s, and there's just had the misfortune, just as I said about Boston earlier, and frankly, you can go back in hockey history and see that repeatedly, in not a ton of times, but in other instances where teams were running the day. Like Boston had that same misfortune in the 1950s. They were in the finals in 53, 57, and 58 and couldn't beat the Habs. And 53 they lost in the semifinals, but they had a really, really solid team. And you had only 6 teams, but you had Detroit at the tail end of their four cups in 5 years and winning 7 Prince of Wales, and then you had the Habs just absolutely taking off with Geoffrion, Dickie Moore, and and Jean Beliveau on top of the Rocket and Doug Harvey and Jacques Plante coming along. So there's just no way. And it just happens in hockey history. So it was misfortune for Winnipeg for sure. But sure love that city. And, when I did a gig, one of the greatest gigs of my life, 1999. It's hired by Labatt's. Every single Tuesday morning for 26 consecutive weeks, I was flown to a different part of Canada.
Whoa.
And I was the entertainment that was in charged with keeping the people in the sports bar who were there for the TV taping for the national broadcast on Sportsnet that night. So the crowd were assembled. Everyone was on cue to cheer and do all this and that for the broadcast that night. It was taped, but then my job was to keep them entertained until the game actually started. And I did the best one we had at 26 cities. There was 3 that stand out. They put me in a strip joint in Edmonton,
nice.
Which was an absolute mistake.
Nice.
Absolute mistake on a lot of fronts, although I loved it.
Yeah.
They put me at Memorial University in St. John's, Newfoundland, and Winnipeg. I was in a sports bar in Winnipeg, and you should have seen the crowd. I actually had to stand on the bar. There were so many guys drilling me with hockey questions, and we drank so much that night. And then we went out that night with a bunch of the guys after. I'll tell you what, I had a fantastic time. So I love that city, man. Absolutely love it.
We're in conversation with Liam McGuire here on RawMikeRichards.com, watching either on the website or the dedicated YouTube channel brought to you by DKI. And, you look at things historical, and we will use the word like a dynasty. We'll use the word dynasty, and I think because of the cap era, just because of the dollars and cents and how it works and trying to keep players, that definition, I think Liam, has to change a little bit, because you're not going to see, I don't believe, people winning 3 and 4 in a row. Now I realize what Pittsburgh has won, but in reality it's so much hockey, they go so much longer, and trying to keep the players, it is really, really difficult. So therefore, when I look at the Montreal Canadian fans who constantly chirp at us or chirp to anyone who's going to listen, they're either really, really high when it's good and they start talking about all the cups, or it's devastation. Now, if you're looking at that organization and what they need to do in this modern era, forgetting about the Flying Frenchman and everything else, because that's gone, do you think they're at the point, or they should start to consider dismantling it, not unlike what happened here in Toronto? So you've got to get some value for those that are going out the door, which means names like Carey Price come to mind. If you're Montreal, do you dish him before skills start to diminish? Is his value high enough that you'd want to do it now?
Well, his contract kicks in next year, so they've signed him to that 10.25, and it's an 8-year deal, as we all know. And depending on how he finishes this season, I mean, he played 5 real solid games, and then wasn't really, really sharp the other night, but still made some great saves against St. Louis. But they hadn't faced a team like St. Louis yet this year. That was a wake-up call for them. We'll see how they play against Calgary tonight. To your question, Mike, the thing is, if you are a Habs fan, what's probably frustrating is depending on how old you are, you were there. They were there in the late 90s. After the Patrick Waugh trade, they fell right off the face of the earth. They missed the playoffs 3 out of 4 years in the late 90s. And it was, it was a challenge. Scoring was down. The team was decimated. You're being led by Martin Ruzinski. It just wasn't a good time. They rebuilt, and they draft Jose Theodore. So again, they get a strong goalie, wins the Hart Trophy, wins the Vezina. Sound familiar, right? And they built a team, started to look like rebuild. Had some draft choices. You had Saku Koivu approaching his prime. Excuse me. Mm-hmm. You had a number of key infrastructure players that were really contributing to the team. You pick up Bob Gainey from Dallas, who goes to a 5-year plan, and it looks like they're heading in the right direction. And then Gainey's daughter dies right on the boat. She disappears into the ocean on a black night. And there's Bob out there, God love him, imagine, in the Atlantic Ocean on a boat trying to find his daughter. And he was never the same after that. And Pierre Gauthier takes over as GM and absolutely decimated the team. And if you look at Bergevin coming in 6 years ago, again, another guy with a 5-year plan. Well, they peaked, right? They hit that pinnacle in 2014. They make the semifinals. You got Carey Price kicking out BBs, and then Kreider runs them over in game 1. And Tokarski comes in. They lose the series to the Rangers. They don't go to the finals, and the Rangers lose in the finals to LA in 5 games, 3 of them in overtime. So they were right there. And that's where this particular group, led by Carey Price in his prime, even though he had the season that he did, as we all know, a couple of years ago, maybe one of the best, most dominant seasons in goaltending history, still, that was their pinnacle right there, 2014, 2015, and they haven't been able to. So to your point, is that something they should possibly consider? Well, here's the challenge there. I don't know that you can task that to Marc Bergevin and Rick Dudley and Martin Lapointe and the group, the veteran group of assistant GMs that he has assembled there, that he largely brought over from Chicago, almost every one of them, all former players. I don't know that you can task that group led by Bergevin to do that, Mike. I think it may come at the expense of Bergevin's job, which I know a lot of Habs fans wouldn't be disappointed in right now. And you may say, if they miss the playoffs this year, which is a very strong possibility, they have dug a massive hole, because it's these games in hand that everybody has are a huge albatross for them right now. So any loss is really magnified. And 5 games in a row, that's great. It's got to be 10. And that's likely not to happen. So there's still a strong possibility. If they miss this year, yeah, that's what they should do. They should probably look at gutting this thing and trying, and whether that's a possibility. Now, Carey has no trade. He has no movement. So he's got to agree to anything. Now, would a team take him? I think so. I think if they went to him and said, Carey, we want to gut this thing, would you waive it? And he probably would. But that's what it would take, and I don't know that you could task Marc Bergevin to do it. Now, I live here in Ottawa, and Ottawa did that. They went to Eugene Melnyk, who's a train wreck on a good day, went to Brian Murray, God rest his soul, and said, when the Sens were sucking there about 5 years ago, and they said, this is post Stanley Cup final in 2007, and he said, that's it. And in February, before the trade deadline, he moved out Chris Kelly, he moved out Mike Fisher, 2 key components, 2 incredibly popular guys on the organization, and they began the process of gutting the team. And you know what? They've never recovered. They've never recovered from that. They went to the semifinals last year. I know you're saying, Liam, what about last season?
Yeah.
They won 6 games in overtime. They snatched victory from the jaws of defeat literally 5 times. I mean, Game 5 against the Rangers. Are you kidding me? That happens once a decade. Once a decade, you're scoring 2 goals in the last 90 seconds to force OT and then winning in OT, and the same guy got all 3 goals. That happens once a decade, folks. So, it's been a revolving door of coaches, and Ottawa's a different story. But they did that, Mike, and it didn't work. And you're careful what you wish for if you're a Habs fan. But that's the immediacy of the world we live in today. Everybody, whoever you cheer for, if they have a bad period, you know all about it because Twitter blows up. And you want everybody gone. Heaven forbid you lose a game. Everybody knows the line combinations. Everybody is saying that Mike Babcock can't coach, or that triumvirate that's running the show, Lou Lamoriello, is just getting more bald, if that's even possible. He doesn't really know what the hell he's talking about. And they say that about all their teams, no matter who they cheer for. And the overwhelming majority of them that comment like that can't even skate. Yeah. They never played a competitive sport beyond the age of 12 in their lives. Somebody in grade 7 with a hockey sweater stole their lunch money, so they got a hard on for the sport, and they think they know what they're talking about, and they don't. And that's the world we live in today. So in Montreal's case, do they gut this thing? Well, frankly, they were there in the late 90s, and they rebuilt, and they've been there. Can they do it again? Should they do it again? Yeah, you know what? If they miss the playoffs this year and they do it and do so as a relatively healthy team, then yeah, I think they should.
Liam, you mentioned the Ottawa Senators, and I wanted to bring up Matt Duchene. I've lived in the city of Ottawa, and I know the media covers the Senators because it's the number 1 ticket in town, and rightfully so. It's an NHL team. What sort of heat is the Ottawa Senators management under for that Duchene trade, considering that he's been there for about a month now, and he scored 1 goal?
Guys, it's so hot right now in this city, and then losing last night, getting shut out again, and they played an okay game. Mm-hmm. They really did. They just couldn't find a way to put one in. But right now, they're not getting the goaltending, and it wasn't horrible last night. I mean, Anderson was okay, and it's Carlson. Carlson's a mere shadow of himself right now. He's got no mobility. He can't push off that ankle, that foot, whatever the operation was. And the trade, Dave, the trade is killing Ottawa right now. There's no doubt about it, because not only did you give up Turris. But here's the thing, what people don't know, okay? I'll tell you right now. That trade was not a hockey trade. That trade was a business trade. At the time, on paper, I didn't mind it, and here's why. I'm not going to be a Sunday morning quarterback here, or a Monday morning quarterback, I should say, and a hypocrite. At the time, I didn't mind it, and here's why. You got Stone, you got to re-sign this year. You've got, on July 1st, 2018, you have to offer Erik Karlsson a new contract. Now, that's somewhat we can sort of put a bit of a bit of an umbrella on that for the moment, because let's see if when he rekindles his superlative superstar form. If he does not, it changes the schematic of the money you got to throw at him. But at the end of the day, I believe that they do have to offer him, which is just what Montreal did this year, right? They signed Carey Price on July 3rd, I think it was, whatever,
yes.
A couple days after it was optioned. Now, that money kicks in next season. He's on his existing contract this year. So the money you offer Erik at the end of this season will kick in the next year. So if they signed Kyle Turris, or tried to, now the Turris camp wanted minimum 6, preferably 8-year deal, weren't going to settle for less, it sounds like, than 7 here in Ottawa, and wanted upwards of $7 to $8 million a year. There was no way he was getting it here. Okay, I know what you're saying. He goes to Nashville, he signed 6 over 6, yes, but that was after the trade was done. And here to stay in Ottawa, he knew where he was in the pecking order. He did not have a good start to the season. His play was down, and Dorian moves him, frees up, that brings in Duchesne. Duchesne's contract ends in 2 seasons. So regardless of what you do with him, his money is off the books when Karlsson's money kicks in. At that point, you will have signed Stone, you will have made a decision on Ceci, and you will have either signed or moved Brassard. There's no way, even if the cap went to $80 million, all things being equal, that you have to give Erik somewhere between 11 or 12. There's no way you could fit everybody in. So he moves Turris to ensure that in 2019, he's got the money when Erik's kicks in, and he can fit in everybody else. He knew he was going to lose somebody. So he bought himself the most important commodity at that time, which was time. And he gets back what on paper we all thought was a decent center. He's 2 years younger than Turris. He went 3rd overall like Turris. He's a previous member of Team Canada. He's a previous 30-goal scorer. Everything should have fit. The last piece to the puzzle was all he had to do was go out and play. And instead, he absolutely craps the bed. And that's what he's done to this date. And it absolutely is coming back on Pierre Dorian and the Senators right now tenfold. It looks terrible because he's gripping the stick. He can't buy a goal. He's not going to the net with the same ferocity. The team is choking the stick big time, and he's a part of it. And it's a mess right now with him, an absolute mess. But that's why that trade was made. It was not a hockey deal. Pierre Dorian didn't wake up one morning and say, I got to get Matt Duchesne. How do I get Matt Duchesne? No, he knew he was going to lose Turris, because keep in mind, Turris is unrestricted at the end of the season. If he doesn't sign, he's unrestricted. If you hit the trade deadline and you haven't moved that guy, you risk losing him at the end of the year, because he wanted 7 or 8 years. He wasn't going to get that in Ottawa.
Right.
So he's got to make a deal. So that was an economical financial deal, and it's turned around, and it has bit them in the ass big time, because Duchesne has been absolutely terrible.
Well, Liam, you also bring up a point, too. Sometimes I call it sport math, where something should equal something if you put those things together. And there's many people in many different sports who are really good at it, but even they, at times, have to admit, even when the math looks right, if someone, again, is going to shit the bed or do whatever, there is nothing you can do about it. The math should have been right, but it ends up being wrong, and it's just one of those things that happens, right? There's not, what are you going to do about it? You think Ryan Leaf is going to be, or the greatest quarterback, or Matt Leinart? All the math looked good. It was all there, but it's still, it comes down to those individual moments, and if it doesn't work, man, it doesn't work, and you can do nothing about it. Nothing.
Well, look, the Edmonton Oilers dropped in first picks overall and then trade them a few years later. But keep in mind, they're not the only team to do that, right? I mean, the Quebec Nordiques drafted first overall 3 years in a row. And when Colorado, the former Nordiques, won the Stanley Cup in 1996, not one of those 3 guys were there. Yeah. So it's Owen Nolan, Matt Sundin, and Eric Lindros were all moved. Now, the Lindros one's well documented, but the other 2 were moved out too before Colorado won that Stanley Cup. And they were first overall picks in 89, 90, and 91. And Edmonton's gone through the same thing. Washington took Greg Jolly in 1974, first overall. I think they'd like a do-over. I mean, it's go down the line, right? You could cite examples in all sports, up and down and all around. And you're right. Unfortunately, the buck has to stop somewhere because it hits the wall, right? It reverberates. It's like a shot coming off the backboards. And right now, that's on Pierre Dorion. Goes back to Dave's point. I mean, the temperature is so hot here in Ottawa right now. Now they're going in to play LA tonight. You kidding me? And then they got San Jose, and then you got to come home and play a Sabre team. Can't get a win to save their lives. They're probably licking their lips to get this wounded bear. And it's a mess here right now. And look, it's going to probably cost Boucher his job. The guys aren't buying into the 1-3-1 anymore, and that's his MO. He did it in Drummondville. He did it in Tampa Bay. He did it in Hamilton. Everywhere he's done it. He's had a phenomenal first year or two, and then it absolutely craps the bed. And this is his MO because he's so stubborn. I guarantee you right now, and I don't know this for a fact, but I'd be willing to bet money on it, that Pierre Dorion had to go to Guy Boucher and say, look, Thomas Chabot is playing, okay? He's playing next game. Now, we didn't bring this guy up from Belleville to sit in the freaking stands. So he's playing next game, and he's been one of their best defensemen. It's just such a colossal, cluster, what here right now from Heartbreak Ridge there with Clint Eastwood, and it's a mess here right now, man. It's a mess.
Well, you know what makes things better, Liam? Going to McGuire's pub and having yourself a wee drink. That's the magic right there. And I said for years, if people are fans of this show, when they come up and see you, they get their first drink. This is what I know.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mike, I've said that on your show for years. God love you, buddy, for remembering that. We had so much fun in the studio at different times, as I said at the start of this interview. And anybody listening right now, I do have a pub with my name on it here in Ottawa on the east end of the city. It's called Liam McGuire's. I'm online. I'm very easy to find on Twitter. It's Liam's_hockey. You send me a message that you're coming into town. I'll meet you there, and the first round's on me.
Look at this.
The best.
You'll see Dave Bastel there tomorrow. It's free.
I'll see you there. You let me know you're coming in.
Hey, Liam, you're so awesome. Thanks so much for being on the show. We got to do this on a regular basis. Really miss you, pal. It was wonderful having you on the show today.
Likewise, Mike. And listen, buddy, continued good health. You're absolutely ripping it. I'm so thrilled that you have got this going, and it's a real honor to be on and a real pleasure to talk to you again. Please have me on again. I really enjoyed it.
Take care. We'll talk to you soon, pal.
All right, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Liam.
That is Liam McGuire. You heard it here. Just send him a message. He's online. Send him an email. You getting free booze.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, we got to get to a couple of other things. We will go through our famous game show that we have not done in a while.
Okay.
Watch it or bet it. We used to do that with Alex Marvez all the time. It was one of our favorite times. And look, a lot of times over the last couple of weeks, you might bet on a couple of these games, but you probably wouldn't watch a whole bunch. I wonder if this is going to be any different. Then after that, we'll immediately go to, I think the limousine is here. We'll immediately go to Victor Newman.
Okay.
And then wrap it up before there's any more excitement.
Sounds
or green pea adventures. And when I mean green pea, it's the green parking thing. I don't mean
that's right.
What Russell was doing last night.
No, that's true.
It's just not right at all.
Oh, my goodness.
So we need to do, for the first time, I don't know if we've done this before, including the music that's referred to as the shit music. Here we go. And now it's time to play everyone's favorite game show. Watch it or bet it. Oh, there it is, Dave. There's the music. It's all there. And we'll start with tonight's game in the NFL. You've got the New Orleans Saints, Atlanta Falcons, +1. Saints on the road. Do you watch it, bet it? Or you might need to do both.
I'm watching it and betting it. And I'm betting the Saints. And I'm going to accept those points. And I'm going to go Saints all the way. I think the Saints are the best team in that division. You know what? I'm looking forward to a massive shootout tonight. So look for the Saints to not only cover that number or get that, you get that point and win outright, but that total will go over. That will be a heavy over in Atlanta.
Then coming up on Sunday, we got the Bears, Bengals, -6. That number looks like it's dropped a little bit.
Pass.
So not watching or betting. Dallas Cowboys, Giants, it is -4, so plus Giants at home.
I'm taking the Giants in the points.
Oh, my God, Dave. What?
I know.
Was it all the heat that we got for the Peyton Manning bit?
It could be. It could be. And it also could be a nice Eli Manning way of sticking it to the man, because as long as the Giants win a couple games, they're going to fall out of that number 3 spot in the lottery. So a nice Eli Manning present in my world would be win a couple games, leave New York with a 5th or 6th overall pick.
Detroit Lions, Buccaneers, I'm not going to bet on it. It's off the board actually right now, and I definitely wouldn't watch it. I'm not interested in that game at all.
Pass. Unfortunately, there's a lot of passes.
Colts, Bills.
I don't know anybody with a brain that would watch this.
Also off the board due to lack of interest.
Yes.
Green Bay Packers and the Cleveland Browns. Are you serious? Hey, but in all seriousness, is this a game the Browns can win?
This is a game that the Browns will challenge because Green Bay, with Brett Hundley in the quarterback position, has been nice at times, but he plays to the opponent. When they were in Pittsburgh, they played to Pittsburgh. When they're in Cleveland, guess what? Could be playing to Cleveland. Be careful with this one if you're betting it. I'm out of this conversation.
Let's take a look at the here's a Vikings Panthers. It is +3 Panthers at home. Gonna be a good game.
Yeah, gonna be a good game. I'm definitely watching this game. This is up there with the game of the week as far as best two teams colliding kind of thing. There's one coming up as well that I'll rank even higher. But you know what? Minnesota's won on the road before. They went to Atlanta last week, and Case Keenum, I'm a believer. I don't know if there's a nickname for Case Keenums, but I'm on board. The case is no, you can't say.
I'm ruling on the case, and the case is victory.
Yes.
No, that makes no sense.
No, but you know what I'm saying.
That was terrible.
I'll
That's as shit as this music.
I'll take the Vikings in this one.
49ers, Houston Texans, -3 Texans at home. I'm not watching it, nor am I betting on this.
I'm betting this.
Oh, my God.
I'm betting this
you
because
really going after it.
I believe in Jimmy G.
Ooh.
And I'll take the points, and Jimmy G wins in Houston.
You get 3 points, too. The Jets and Broncos. -1 Jets, so it's +1. Broncos at home.
How embarrassing are you, Denver, when the Jets are actually favorites in Mile High? That's sick. No, I'm not. I'm not betting on this at all.
Titans, Arizona Cardinals. It's +3 Cardinals at home.
Yeah. You know what? Before the show, I was doing some research on this. Tennessee, a non-conference, last 9 games have won 7 of them when they've been favorites on the road. I like the Tennessee Titans to continue that.
Redskins at the Chargers, -6 at home for L.A.
A lot of points for L.A. in this
That's
one.
a ton of points.
That's a ton of points.
And I think it's coming that way just because the Redskins, I thought they were dreadful in Dallas.
Yeah.
So I think there's a little bias.
I'm avoiding this on the betting scale. I'll watch it just because I want to see the Chargers
I agree.
win that
you know,
division.
I would watch it, but I'm not gonna touch it. It's too tough a game, I think. Eagles, Rams. That's a good one. You got
this is my game of the week.
-2.5. That field goal game, is that what it looks like, Dave?
It does look like a field goal game, and I like the LA Rams to win this one. I think the Rams are going to win because it's in LA. I'd say the same thing about the Eagles if this game was in Philadelphia, and guess what? That number would probably be the exact same thing if it was in Philly.
Seahawks and the Jags, -2.5. The Jags at home. Interesting.
It is interesting.
It's a 4:00 game, by the way.
It is a 4:00 game. You know what? Sign me up anytime the Seahawks have an opportunity of losing. And I think this is one of them.
Hate those dicks. Hate that team. That's what they should be, the Seattle Sea Dicks. Hate them.
Interesting logo on the side of the helmet.
Unlike the Shithawks ones that I see all the time. Ravens, Steelers. It is -5. There's a hated football number, but a -5. Steelers at home to the Ravens. They should, but I don't know. I don't even enjoy it. It's the Sunday night game. Do you watch it or do you bet it?
I watch it just because that's the only thing I have on my television at that time. I'll tell you this. Traditionally, this is what used to be known as a guaranteed pro-line tie.
Always, but
right now I'm not sure if I'm convinced of it, but for old time's sake, I'll go Ravens plus the points in this one.
Okay, so you're going to bet it but not watch it.
Yeah, well, I'll probably watch this.
Then we've got Monday is the Patriots at the Dolphins, which historically over the years could have been a good one. It's -11 right now, so +11 Miami at home.
Yeah, woof.
I'm not watching it.
Nah.
I got to be honest. I'm not going to watch it.
I'll scan it.
And it's Monday Night Football. You're supposed to be watching these games, and yet no, I'm not doing it. But I wonder if someone is the limousine.
Yeah, he's been waiting here for. I bet you he's a little bit upset now because Victor Num is actually. Oh, he's talking to a lady right now. He just gave her his phone number. Okay, Victor Newman joins us for his passionate picks. Victor,
you listen to me right now.
Okay,
you shut the hell up.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Just so people are understanding, I do not do anything that is considered damn inappropriate. I received some of your emails saying the things that you say. Well, you listen to me. I'm Victor Newman. You got that? I do what I want, and the reason I do it is because the women want it.
Okay.
And that's how the hell that works, Dave.
You think I need to Greg's on someone? Think again. I'm down Victor Newman. Let's get to my picks right now because they're winners, all right? Let's start with Oakland at Kansas City, National Football League. +4 Oakland. Give me those goddamn points. That's what I say, David.
Okay.
Let's hear you say that.
Give me those points.
Don't be such a damn pussy. Here we go. Looking at college football, there's not much left until you get to the bowl games, but it's a classic. Army versus Navy. Here's the one thing that I know about that. If you're looking for points, you're not looking at this game. These guys collectively probably throw the ball about 20 times between each of them in an entire year. Under 47, take that one to the bank. That's the number. Also in Europa soccer. I like to call it football because I played it when I was a lot younger.
You did, eh?
That's why you can see such strong thigh muscles through my tight pants. Austria against Athens. That's a Greek team. You should be interested in that.
It is, yep.
You've always said to me, I love the damn Greek style.
Right.
Well, you're going to love it today if it's an over. For once, teams that score from Greece. Over 2.5, it pays a 1-8, and you're going to damn well do it. Big game in the Premiership this weekend. Manchester United versus Manchester City. City is on the road, and City is the best damn team in England. They're going to win. Take them at a 206. That's money in the bank. And trust me, it's the one thing that Victor Newman knows. It's damn women, and there's money. Finishing with Philadelphia and the Lakers. That game is tonight. If you want to get in, you got to play it. The Lakers are terrible. I don't give a damn about Lamar Ball or Vigini or what the goddamn names are. The father's a goddamn idiot, and his son's going to lose again. -7.5, 76ers. You take that to the bank. I'm Victor Newman, and trust me, I know you're listening, ladies. Because you want to, not because you have to. That's a lesson for you, Matt Lauer, a goddamn idiot, like you, Dave.
Thank you, Victor Newman, and his passionate picks every single Thursday here on Raw Mike Richards.
Oh, gee, a lot of guys really taking it on the nose on that one, aren't they? So remember, we've got all our stuff coming tomorrow, all the picks that have made us famous. So nice to have, by the way, Liam McGuire. So here's what we'll do. We'll play this music. Come on now. There it is. What? Yep.
Did we just become best friends? Yep.
Yes, we did.
You want to go do karate in the garage?
I watched Elf again last night.
Did you really?
Yeah. It is that time. I mean,
Die Hard's coming up soon too.
Oh yeah,
the
that's
best
a
Christmas,
classic.
the best Christmas movie ever. Die Hard.
McClane. John McClane. Oh, Rickman. Can you believe he's dead? Boy, did we lose. Hey, 2017 is going, and boy, did it take a lot of people with it. Unbelievable what happened. I'd like to thank our good pal or brother, Liam McGuire. Wasn't he great? Oh, my God. And remember, you send that message to him.
Yes.
You get free drinks at McGuire's. Remember tomorrow, the Sexy Gold Picks of Gold Sex, Dave Bastel Foreplay, also Russell Graham's Happy Endings. It's all happening. A big Friday, the big finish on what was an excellent week for the show. Thanks so much. And remember to subscribe. It certainly helps.